New civil rights data collections findings were released by the U.S. Department of Education, but they're not talking about what the data mean for students of color. Plus, Senate Republicans failed to pass their skinny COVID-19 stimulus package as a more comprehensive deal eludes the White House and House Democrats. With prospects for an agreement prior to the election fading, will schools ever get the relief they need? Hi, I'm Philip Lovell, and I'm joined by Ziyu Zhou. Let's begin with an update on COVID-19 relief negotiations. Ziyu?
Last week, the U.S. Department of Education released findings from the long-delayed 2017-18 Civil Rights Data Collection, a biannual survey of the nation's public elementary and secondary schools. The department's analysis focuses on two areas: reports of sexual violence and the use of physical restraint and seclusion against students. Specifically, elementary and secondary schools reported a more than 50% increase in reports of sexual violence during the 2017-18 school year compared to the 2015-16 school year. The agency's Office for Civil Rights said it is unclear what drove the increase in reported allegations. Additionally, the report highlights that students with disabilities, and specifically Black students with disabilities, were disproportionately subject to seclusion and restraint.
Unfortunately, that's one of the only findings that focuses specifically on the school experiences of students of color. While the CRDC includes many data points that can be used by advocates and researchers to uncover inequities in the nation's schools, the Office of Civil Rights provided next to no explanation of what the data mean for Black and Latino students, reinforcing a troubling trend from this administration. In a statement, All for Ed President and CEO Deb Delisle explained, quote, "After taking far too long to release this information, the Trump administration did so without providing much needed analysis to go along with millions of data points. This follows an insidious history of this administration's denials of systemic racism, ranging from their rescission of OCR's guidance on school discipline and school integration to the recent executive order prohibiting federal agencies and contractors from engaging in trainings that promote diversity." As we covered before on Federal Flash, the department delayed the latest CRDC by a year, citing uncertainty and unreliability of data collection due to the coronavirus, and is also planning to cease collection of a number of critical equity data points, including questions relating to school funding and experienced educators. We'll keep you posted on these efforts.
With time slipping away to strike a deal on a COVID-19 relief package before the election, Senate Republicans tried again to pass a skinny version of their stimulus bill, the HEALS Act. As a reminder, this proposal has a lower $500 billion price tag than the $2.2 trillion HEROES Act, passed by House Democrats. The Senate plan also includes less relief for education, $70 billion for public and private schools, with 2/3 of that contingent on schools offering in-person classes. However, Democrats blocked the measure and it failed to pass the Senate floor. In the meantime, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin continue to work on a more comprehensive bill, but major sticking points remain. As we covered on Federal Flash, President Trump abruptly sidelined negotiations with Democrats after they unveiled the new HEROES Act earlier this fall. But conversations restarted just a few days later after the president got an earful from Republican lawmakers who were wary of abandoning actions to boost the economy in an election year.
Although Pelosi and Mnuchin have made progress on some fronts, such as provisions related to COVID-19 testing, many Senate Republicans remain opposed to a large $2 trillion stimulus. Moreover, the White House and Democratic leaders continue to disagree over provisions related to liability protections for employers and the amount of aid for state and local governments. Unfortunately, much needed aid to schools is left hanging in a balance. Here's a brief clip from House Speaker Pelosi.
My view is that there's no reason that America's schools shouldn't be the safest place in America for our children to go to learn. It takes some money for more classes, more teachers, more ventilation, more technology and the rest. But it takes not that much more money to make it safe. If children can go to school, children learning, parents earning.
Even if the parties can come to agreement at this point, there simply aren't enough legislative days left on the calendar to draft and pass a bill before Election Day. And the prospects for legislation during the lame duck session will depend on the outcome November 3rd and which party controls the White House and Congress moving forward. That's all for today. For an alert when the next Federal Flash is available, email alliance@allfored.org. Thanks for watching.
Federal Flash is the Alliance for Excellent Education's video series on important developments in education policy in Washington, D.C. Watch online at allfored.org/federalflash, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or listen to Federal Flash wherever you get your podcasts.